One, if I remain a fireman, there's a chance that I could die. So how do I support my family? God forbid something happens to me, whether I die or get incapacitated. Number two, how do I make money while I'm asleep at work? And number three, if those first things happen, how can my wife have something that she can manage, right?
Welcome to another episode of the 0 to 100 podcast. I'm here with my two favorite co-hosts, Mitchell England and Travis Dillard. They're my only co-hosts, so that's why they're my favorite 0 to 100 podcast. We are all about one thing, time freedom through cash flow real estate, and our guest, Ian Horowitz, embodies that. Ian began his real estate journey in 2012 with the purchase of his first rental property. Since then, he's expanded his impact across the industry, flipping homes, helping distressed homeowners stay in their properties, and providing housing for subsidized tenants. Today, Ian is deeply involved in self-storage. We have not had a lot of self-storage guys on here, so I'm interested in this. Today, Ian owns and operates over 700,000 square feet of self-storage. A former firefighter, Ian has proudly earned his retirement from public service and now dedicates his full attention to his family and to growing Equity Warehouse, the real estate investment company. Outside of real estate, Ian is a licensed private pilot and enjoys spending his free time exploring the skies.
Oh gosh, here we go. Flying. Here goes Mitch and Ian, especially Mitch, just nerding out on airplanes.
Ian, welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast show.
Yeah, thank God someone wrote that bio, because mine would have been, hi, my name's Ian and I invest in real estate.
I like long walks on the beach. I've got a fantastic beard. So Ian, you're calling in from Philly today, and welcome to the show. Yeah, we're happy to have you. By the way, if for those of you that are watching on YouTube, what are you doing, Mitch? You're in your truck. You're in a van down by the river right now.
Yeah, I am somewhere in Colorado. I should probably know. Oh, Sterling, Colorado. So we're traveling, going to Wisconsin, living out of the camper for about a month. But Ian, the most important question is, what do you fly? That's the most important question that I can ask. So,
and the biggest problem is I'm still doing the Cessna thing. I got my license, then I started doing the instrument, and then every time my instructor's like, "Oh, why don't you just get a twin, or why don't you get a Cirrus?" And you know how it is. It's not like just buying. You just buy something and trade it in like a car. It's more like a piece of real estate. You need to buy it and make sure that you want it and be ready to hold it for a really long period of time. So I've gone back and forth. My mission is just to be able to travel the East Coast. My brother lives in Charleston. So while the idea of a twin sounds amazing, I keep leaning towards a Cirrus. And then I'm like, yeah, screw it. I'll just keep doing the Cessna thing. So I don't know. It's just the time freedom's there, but then the time freedom is spent mostly with the kids, and I can't get my girls in the plane. So that's how I'm going down this road of, well, I need a plane with a parachute, because then I think I can get my wife and kids in the plane. So it's a conundrum, I guess is the best way to say it.
Well, I've flown a lot of Cessna, so there's no problem with that. I do have some time in the SR-22, the parachute SR-22, which is a pretty awesome airplane. And yes, the parachute adds that level of like, you get into some shit, you can actually get out of it. But yeah, I mean, a Cessna 172, 182 is so much fun.
Well, flying is allowed because of time freedom, because I think planes are kind of expensive. And so I think maybe you can have these conversations. I'm trying to tie this back to real estate.
Yeah, if we don't interrupt this conversation, Mitch is going to talk to you about flying for
like here we go. Like the whole thing, like an SR9 bleep, the flux.
We may have a couple listeners that are...
You guys gave me 30 seconds on aviation, and now they're impatient. Listen to that.
And you're done.
Unbelievable.
And you're done. All right, Ian, let's get into your story. You were a firefighter. You were involved in real estate, flipping, and other aspects. And then you have 700,000 square feet of self-storage. It sounds like John Farling introduced us. And I think he may be our only self-storage guy we've had on the podcast. So I'm very interested in this. But let's go into your backstory, kind of, I guess, pre-firefighter, and how you went from being a firefighter, retiring, and then going into real estate.
Yeah. So if you guys want to know, this is exactly what the firehouse is like, a bunch of ball busting. That's why I didn't leave for a really long period of time, and probably inhibited my real estate investing career for a period of time. But basically, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Me and my business partner both grew up here, and we both wanted to be big city firemen, but you had to live in the city of Philadelphia at the time to even be able to test. So we all started taking tests all across basically the eastern seaboard, more or less. And Baltimore City was, I guess, grateful enough to hire us. I don't know who got the winning or losing end of that situation, but it's all true. If you ever watch The Wire, Every last bit of it's true. You saw the riots. That's where we worked. So in 2007, my business partner gets hired. 2008, I get hired. And very quickly did we learn that getting a big city government job, as much as we loved what we did at the core value of what firemen represent and do, and people go out and do every single day, you're just nothing more than a number on a piece of paper. And we learned that really quick because in 2009, we got furloughed. 2010, they said, oh, you know that pension system that you can retire 25 years? California, Detroit, they're all going bankrupt across the country. They're like, you know what? We're just going to change it from 20 years to 25 years. Fight us in court. 2012, the healthcare things change. They start closing companies. They change our schedule. They do all this crap. And all they did was take. And I'm sitting there going, all right, man, I'm like approaching 30. And if this is, I mean, it's all dudes on here. You guys know your wife turns 30 and I have to have kids. My eggs are dying. I'm going, holy shit, dude. Like,
Mitch says that to me all the time and I don't get it. I'm like, your eggs, it's weird.
Yeah, no, dude, you got to get it done, man. And it's like crazy. And then you're sitting there staring at it going, well, if I have kids, I don't want to send, like, the thought of sending them to like a daycare that costs as much as a mortgage, and not having my wife be able to raise the kids or us being able to spend as much time as humanly possible really started to mess with me. So I said, okay, well, I got a few things here. One, if I remain a fireman, there's a chance that I could die. So how do I support my family? God forbid something happens to me, whether I die or get incapacitated. Number two, how do I make money while I'm asleep at work? And number three, if those first things happen, how can my wife have something that she can manage, right? Because we were doing construction, landscaping, you name it. Any side job I could pick up, I would do. And I was like, well, that's not like anything. God forbid something happens to me. It continues on without me. And one night I was at work and I was laying there going, you know what? Like, if I bought a rental property, for some reason, it just connected with me. I was like, someone's paying me to be in that house every second of the day. And if something happens to you, my wife can hire a property manager. If nothing else, over 30 years, someone pays off those houses, they're worth exactly the same. I'll leave with $1 million. That was my initial goals. And little did we know, we bought our first house. I know I'm giving you a lot here, but we bought our first house in 2012, not knowing it's the absolute bottom of the market. No fear, because we didn't get beat up during the 2008 crash, and said, you know what, let's go do it. We started buying Section 8 houses and we rode some waves, and here we are today. So that's pretty much the humble beginnings of this whole story.
I love how you say you are a line item on an income statement. I mean, that's what you are, whether you work for a nonprofit or a city or a for-profit company, you're still an expense item. And we always say this in the tribe, what's more risky, being a single line item on an expense sheet or having multiple lines of income that come in from different properties? And that's my response a lot of times when people say, look, I'm out on real estate. It's too risky. And I'm like, well, what's the risk? Not doing anything. And now you're sort of at the whims of, like you said, you're a line item on an expense sheet.
Yeah. So I broke my ankle on the way out the door. And I literally broke my ankle on a fire that was basically got the ball rolling for me of why I wanted it. We knew we were quitting, but then I break my ankle. I'm in this alley. I'm falling between human shit and drug needles. It's during COVID. They're absolute like mass Nazis around there. And I'm like, dude, I can't do this anymore. I waited for a half hour on a Friday night for a medic unit to come and pick me up. I have a broken ankle, and it's taken a half hour for me, my fire department friends and family to bring a medic unit to take me down. And guess what happened? That was on a Friday night. Dude, later that night, they went to another fire. Like nothing happened. I was gone. Next man up, right? It's that next man up mentality. And when the chief, like earlier, she was like, hey, you know, my response, because I had issues with the whole COVID thing. I don't want to take it down this political route, but me personally, I had an issue with wearing a mask. And she's like, my responsibility, you're human capital to the city and you're our asset. And I was like, wow, dude, like we're nothing more than a number. And then I break my ankle. I was like, wow, we're really nothing more than a number. And they always preach family first. And I had some family issues. My brother breaks his back in the desert of Utah. And I was like, hey, I got to go out and help my brother, even though I got a broken ankle. And they're like, no, you can't go. I was like, you know what? That's not right. We're done here. And moved on.
Well, don't get into a mask debate with Gabe, because he was a guy at COVID that had like 3 masks on plus the shield and the earmuffs, which I'd never understood the earmuffs.
That was definitely not me. I don't think I ever wore a mask once, but yeah, I could do a whole podcast. We just lost half our listeners. No, I could do a whole podcast on all the COVID bullshit. Ian, what I like about your origin story, I mean, it's like, you had this strong why, and it seems like when I hear you share the story, it was like more and more like things started to kind of quickly unravel where you're like, wait a minute. Yes, I'm just a line item. Wait a minute. Like they control me. They don't really care about what like all the other aspects of my life. And when I hear your story, I really hear like, hey, enough is enough. It's time for me to take control and kind of take my finances, my life, my freedom into my own hands. So I'm curious, like from that moment of, hey, there's got to be something else. I need to make a change to buying that first property. But then what was the first action you took to close that first deal?
Yeah, I mean, guys, like I had, and everybody says, oh, it was different when I started. But no, it's not what it was. Yes, like prices were different, but they're all relative in the same sense. And dude, I had a 500 credit score. Don't ask why I had $15,000 saved up in a bank account, but I did. I was able to find a hard money lender that allowed me to do my first deal. And really what it came down to, it actually, like now in my life, I say no to a lot more than I do yes. But at that time in my life, I was saying yes to literally everything. A buddy of mine, I was getting off the medic unit. He's like, hey, I'm going over to Federal Hill to this meeting. It's about real estate. Great. I said yes. I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going here. She's like, fine, just don't go out and drink all night. But we wound up doing that anyway. And so I get there and the guy walks in. And I was reading this book. It's called it's a Section 8 Bible. I still have it here on my thing. It was these two guys from Philly and they're talking about like, all this stuff about Section 8. I don't know why. Maybe because I worked in Baltimore. I saw a lot of subsidy, all these other things, right? So I'm like, man, I really want to do Section 8. The government will back it. I don't have to deal with all this rent crap. This guy walks in to this meeting and he's like, hey, my name's so-and-so. And I have like 200 Section 8 units. I was like, oh my God, it's meant to be. And then the lady comes out who's hosting the meeting. She's like, just kidding. We'll have this guy talk later. We're going to talk about how you can sell electric to all your friends. I was like, oh, this Ponzi scheme crap. I said, hey, dude, you want to go grab a drink? He's like, absolutely. We connected. And he said, hey, if you ever need anything, follow up with me. What do most people do when someone says that? They don't actually ever follow up. Most people, when they're saying that, they want to express and share that knowledge. I don't know, 10, 15 days later, I was like, yo, bro, if you're serious, I'm going to come see what you do. Yeah, I was real uncomfortable. Go out, check out what he does. He shows me everything. He says, if I ever find a house, I'm going to call you. All right. Calls me maybe 20, 30 days later. He's like, hey, I got a house for 25 grand. And I said, I don't know, man. I'm going to figure it out. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. And those were the initial steps that I took by saying yes. Like I said, today I say a lot more no's to a lot of things, but having that open mindset of even having a conversation, I would not be in the game today without that. And just for a quick breakdown, I heard someone say, geez, it was 25 grand. I don't know. Our accounting skills weren't good then, but maybe I put 25, 30 grand into it. And then I got $1,250 rent. And that was like cracked me, dude. Like, sorry if I'm talking a little wild to the audience. This is me all the time. So I'm not putting on a show.
And we want the authentic Ian Horowitz. I mean, keep it real.
Yeah. So it was $1,250 rent, right? And then even with my hard money loan in place at 15% and 6 points or whatever the hell I paid, I was still cash flowing $400 or $500 a month. And that was literally a whole week's paycheck. That was a whole overtime shift. And I said, holy crap. You imagine if I had 10 of these a month, what would that look like?
And you don't have to hang out in human feces and needles. Well, Section 8, sometimes you got to, I guess, with Section 8 maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you're still bouncing around some of the rough neighborhoods, but that was a competitive advantage we utilized, right? Because I was like, all right, we know how to deal with people on the street. I'm dealing with people in their worst absolute emergency in these same neighborhoods. I can mentally handle it and cope with it. There's no way I would have competed with a guy who's buying a self-storage facility because I personally did not have the maturity level to go out and buy commercial real estate day number one, right? My credit score was 500. I had a little rough pass, whatever, it happens. But I didn't have the maturity level. I needed to start from the bottom and work my way up to get to that maturity level to be able to buy those opportunities. Other people on this call, maybe you guys, you could start out right away. I just knew if I didn't start at that price point, I would never done it because the thought of buying a $300,000 house to get $3,000 rents was so far out of bounds for me, right? Because at that time, to me, it was like, okay, if I buy a $25,000 house and I put $25,000 into it and I lose it all, who cares? I'll deal with it. I'll continue on my 30-year career and I'll figure out how to pay this $50,000 debt off some other time in my life. But if I don't try it today, I will never, ever know.
I think that illustrates perfectly the mindset. We talk a lot about mindset, but also like the action piece. And so that demonstrates you took action. And that's the thing that a lot of people are not willing to do. They read all the books, they listen to the podcast, they get the information, but they don't fucking take action. And so I think your story really demonstrates like you had the strong desire. And then something that really resonates with me as well is you said, hey, back then I said yes to a lot of things. Today I say no to a lot. that resonates because I was very similar. Like I said yes to everything early on, everything real estate related, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I actually think when I look back on some of our other guests and some other people, other investors I know, it's actually really similar. It's like you say yes to everything for a certain period of time to get your foot in the door, to kind of learn where you want to focus your time and energy. And then you find, hey, this is what works. This works for me. This is what I'm going to focus on. And then you can really start saying no to all the things that don't align with those things that are moving you closer to your goal or what you want in life or business. And so your story demonstrates that almost to the T. I mean, just to the T.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun ride. I think people need to recognize you're watching a lot of influencers, right? Like everybody's watching Hermosi today, right? That guy's giving you sound advice from a guy who's got a 9-figure company. And yes, a lot of it resonates true, but I know he's very locked in on like one thing. And I agree to an extent. But when you're starting out, you need to figure out if you like mobile home parks, if you like self-storage. Do you like Section 8 rentals? I love Section 8 rentals for a period of time, but they don't serve me anymore, right? And it's okay. I need to move on to the next thing. I could continue to do this. And that's why most investors get stuck, right? They stop learning how to say, yes, let me continue to learn and expand and grow. Most people say, wow. And we could have done the same thing. We had 100 single family rentals producing whatever a month. And we could have said, you know what? That's it. Let's hang it up. We're done. But instead, we decided to continue to grow our portfolio and continue to push the envelope. And the more that you can learn, the more, and this is something that came from the fire department, the more you can learn, the more tools that you have in the box that you can extricate someone, you can put a fire out, right? The same as in business. The more tools you have in the box, you can buy the property, you can wholesale the property, you can co-invest in the property, you can take an equity piece in the property, you can master lease it, you do all these different things. But if you don't say yes and learn about them, I'm not saying you need to execute on all of them. You just need to have the ability to understand and figure out what works to do the best with that property that's presented to you. And I think a lot of that comes from the fire department, plan A, plan B, plan C. You don't have a choice but to put this fire out, figure it the F out. You're not leaving until it goes out. That's the same thing that we apply to business.
So guys, I want to stay focused and tie this back to aviation real quick. It's a joke. It's a joke. Relax. Okay. So I'm curious. So I think back to my journey. I remember I was working for this job and I got my first, or maybe it was a second rental house, and I gave myself a raise. And that's what it sounds like you did on that first one. And it's like you said, it's like crack. You're like, oh my God, I'm taking control of my life. And I think that's such a big aha moment. Once you get that cash flow on the very first one, you're like, oh my God, I'm starting to escape the system. And I gave myself a raise versus working more overtime, right? So I'm curious, that first one, you get some cash flow. What was your next step? Where was your mind? And how did you start to put sort of a plan in place to go scale?
Yeah, we wound up with right around 100 single family units. So basically what happened was I did the first one. I did not know how to refinance it. Like I said, my credit was a little messed up. I was working on that. I was taking every dollar, putting it back into the bank account. I didn't touch it. I also was continuing to work side work. So at that time, we were working 2 days on, 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, 4 days off. So on my 2 night works and my 4 days off, I would still do landscaping and all these other things to build cash to go buy the next one. Well, 6 months later, it was this little section of town called the 4x4, just outside of East Baltimore. In case you're wondering, it's 4 blocks by 4 blocks. That's why it's called the 4x4. So another house came up in that same neighborhood. I said, holy shit, that one's 20 grand. Oh my God, it needs a little more work. Great. I know my exact numbers. I can buy this one. Even though I haven't refinanced the first one off the hard money lender, I had no clue how I was going to do it. I buy the second one within 6 months and I got a different hard money lender to lend me that money. Now what happened was I had 2 cash flowing assets that I was allowed to use the cash flow towards my income that got me over the DTI numbers that then helped my credit score and all this other crap to then get the first one refinanced out. And I was like, oh my God, I figured out the secret sauce, right? And all I cared to do was break even. I didn't care about getting my money back, whatever, but I put the money away. Now on number 2, that's why I was like, oh dude, I got to find 3 and 4. And right after that, I found 3 and 4 because we're coming out of the crash. I don't know any of this. And people are like, I got these houses. I'll sell them to you. I'll owner finance them to you. I'll do all this crap. Okay, I'm in. But number 3 and 4 come along. And that's when I was like, all right, now I can buy a truck. And one of these houses pays my truck payment. I'd never had a new vehicle in my life. That was the coolest thing. I bought a 2008 F-250 with a 6.4 motor in it. I thought I was the coolest guy. I had my diesel truck. It's all I ever wanted up into that point. And it was so cool. But with that being said, I just continued to put the foot down. I continued to grind it out. I wound up with 10 houses on my own. And the last 5 or 6 houses I started to pay in cash because I was flipping, I was wholesaling, I was doing all these other little things. I had 10 houses. And then my business partner was like, he was doing some side work for me. And he's like, all right, dude, thanks, but no thanks. I want in. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Let's find houses. He's like, all right. So he figures out how to wholesale. And I was like, great. So he figures out how to wholesale. We partner up on some deals and that was it. We became partners from there. But either way, it was really just putting the money back into the company and not spending it immediately. It was growing that portfolio because I knew, I think Travis said it early on in this conversation about the expenses. It was like, I knew having one house was super risky because when I'm vacant, it's 100% vacant. But if I had 10 houses and one was vacant, I still have 90% occupancy. And that's kind of how I thought about it really quick. And I knew I wanted to grow and scale from there. And then from there, we took on a capital partner and we started flipping houses and we just kind of rode the waves because the nice thing from like 2014-ish till about 2018, things were worth just exponentially more the next day. And there was just this nice trend line. We got to a point where we could continue to keep the houses, build this portfolio, and then grow from there.
When you say capital partner, are you talking about a private money lender and on the debt side?
A little bit of everything. So we had one guy bring $1 million. So he acted as a hard money lender, but then wanted equity. There was kind of no strings attached. So he brought $1 million. So we bought some houses with that.
And he was just taking an interest rate, right?
He took a lower interest rate, but then took upside in the property.
And how did you find him? Some people don't even know somebody with $1 million.
It's back to that mentality of saying yes, go into the real estate meetups, go into the different meetings. I'm a tactile face-to-face person, just bumping into people, getting friendly. You find someone who you feel like you align with. And then one day I was like, he approached me and said, yo, dude, you built 10 houses in 2 years. That's pretty cool. And you guys are doing what? And so I started telling him, he's like, what if I gave you $1 million? Generally, that wasn't the best way to do it, right? Because he kind of had frame control there. And I was like, yeah, sure, $1 million. I didn't know anybody with $1 million. I still thought that was insane, right? I was like, yeah, dude, give us $1 million. We'll do this, this, and this. And off we did. And we went, then we had some scaling problems. And from there, it allowed us to hire a project manager. And we were paying our project manager more than we made in the fire department. We're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And we just kept saying yes and figuring it out. But we had multiple different hard money lenders. We had multiple different capital partners and really just figuring it out and playing it. It was a big balancing act to get to where we are today. But I will say we did have the tailwinds of the markets from like 14 to 18 that allowed us to make some mistakes that probably bailed us out. That might be a little more challenging today for people. But at that time, it allowed us to grow and go and do what we needed to do.
Ian, a lot of like when I hear this, you say a lot of these things so casually, but I really want our listeners to really hear what Ian said, because when you break it down, he had the desire. Like you had the desire to go out there and like build a real estate empire. You took action, and then we always say it's relationships. Like I can never stress that part enough. Like going out there and telling everybody what you're doing. Like I've said this so many times, probably on every podcast, like every single deal has come from a conversation or relationship. And when I hear you, you're like, oh yeah, then we have this capital partner for $1 million. It sounds so casual.
And he approached me. Did you notice that? Once you start getting some success and you're networking with people and you build some notoriety, people approach you with capital, whether it's equity or debt. Sorry, Gabe.
Just when you're excited about it, like when you're excited about investing in real estate and you're willing to actually go out there and tell people what you're doing, you will attract deals. You'll attract properties. You'll attract money. You'll attract all these things. So like hearing you say, like I say, it sounds casual, but like for our listeners, go back and hear what Ian said. Like he had the desire, he took action, he built relationships, and that allowed Ian to take down 100 properties.
Yeah, here's a good one. And when you talk about, okay, I am maybe talking about it casually, but that strikes a thing that reminds me of like, I remember, so I was helping a friend, the guy who showed me the business early on, he would buy the houses and then flip them to other investors and they'd buy them turnkey. So I'd make some money doing that. And I remember some people are, oh, I want all non-recourse debt. I don't want any of that on my books. I don't want to be, I'm thinking, wait a second, either you're in or you're effing out, right? Like it's that simple. Like you're in or you're out. And to us, we've always believed in that. We've always said, okay, we'll personally sign, we'll personally guarantee that. Obviously, as we've grown to the point we are, we're a little more cautious with these things. But in the same sense, like to me, it's still you're in or you're out. And a lot of people just want to dilly-dally. And that's fine if you want to continue to operate. Like there was a scenario that I could have continued to be a fireman but you still need to take your business seriously. I think Mr. Wonderful talks a lot about it on Shark Tank. He's like, yo, if you don't have books for it, it's nothing more than a hobby. And that's how most people treat real estate investing. They treat it like their stocks. Oh, I'll just put money in there. It'll magically grow. No, dude, like if you're not going to manage it, you need to manage the manager. If you're going to take the financing out, you need to manage your banking relationships. If you're going to borrow money from your friends and family, you need to manage those relationships, whether they're good or bad. I mean, I'll be transparent to your audience today. We have a problem in a piece of our portfolio. They're really hard conversations with our capital investors, but I'd rather tell them exactly what the F's going on and say, transparently, here's what's going on. I'm just going to let you guys know we will get out of this, but there is a chance, and that's what you signed up for, that this could happen, right? And I think just having that conversation, and when people see your passion and know that you're trying as hard as you possibly can, it'll work out the way it's supposed to. The universe always knows. I don't know how, but it knows.
Geez, that's the worst case for those of you that are to the point in your investing career where you want to take on capital partners. And we've seen it. You talk about the run up. We've also seen the tides out and dumbasses are getting caught with the pants down. And even Mitch and I have a couple of properties that we're working through, but you have to be transparent, man. People forget that. They just go dark. And there's nothing worse than that. They go, and we have a lot of investors or friends that invest with as limited partners or as on the debt side. When someone goes dark, that's the worst case scenario. And that's the biggest thing to complain about. People that are savvy investors, especially accredited investors, go, look, I get it. Shit happens. I signed up for this. I own it. But my guy went dark on me and you won't respond to any of my emails or my phone calls or my texts. And that's where you go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but that's also what you signed up to do, to sponsor these deals, right? Your fiduciaries. I know we're so far off the journey of what we did, but this is usually what happens with me. So I apologize. But it's like, I feel like I'm talking to my friends right now. So I really enjoy this conversation. So I'm just letting it all out, boys. But yeah, no, like, dude, you signed up to take this money from these people, right? And I don't want to use take, right? Like, it's not take. They've invested with you. They trust you because, as Gabe said, dude, you should be so passionate about what you're doing that they feel infectious to give you money. The way we raised our first dollars was I was doing all these rentals. Maybe we had 25, 30 at the time. A buddy of mine at work was like, yo, dude, what are you doing? And he was very like good with his money. A lot of firemen aren't, in case you're wondering. And he's like, hey, man, I want in. I said, all right, I'll let you know. And the right opportunity came up. I said, hey, Matt, you got that 25 grand, put it in. And then when we sell it, this is what you'll make. And he's like, all right, dude, I'm in. I trust you, whatever it is. And I always remember telling him, and he's one of our biggest investors today. I say, Matt, we're going to ring the stock market bell. Like, that's what I would always tell him. Like, dude, we're going to ring the bell on the stock exchange. That is my only goal. And he's like, dude, I want to be right there with you. And he felt that passion with us, right? So then he starts investing with us and starts understanding the business. He tried buying a rental on his own. He's like, yo, not for me. I trust what you guys are doing. Let's just do this together. I'll give you money. I'll help you raise money. Let's go. And that was, again, I don't want to say that was it, but it was like, hey, like that's step one. Because whenever you do deal one, you raise $1, you do whatever deal one, it's the floodgates open. You just got to get deal one done.
Ian, talk about the journey from, it sounds like you went from single family and eventually shifted gears into the self-storage space. So talk about that journey a little bit. Like, did you sell the single family portfolio? Did you hold on to it? Did you refi and then shift asset classes? Kind of walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, so we had about 100 rentals, and I don't do well when we're not growing. That's not my specialty. I'm a very passionate, visionary type dude, and I want to grow and go. It was maybe just pre-COVID. We were kind of like in this weird place where stuff got a little priced out in our opinion, and we're like, all right, what are we going to do? My business partner and our project manager really took on the operations side of the business and really cleaned up a lot of shit that we weren't doing. And then we got a call to buy a 76-unit apartment building, which is a really cool story. We bought it, a 90% owner financed. It was a really cool deal. We said, oh my God, we need to buy more apartments. Like, we bought this $5 million deal. We raised $1 million of capital for it. Oh my God, we can raise money. And this deal was awesome. How do we do it again? And then quickly you find out that you're running up against every private equity firm, every family office, every institution. I didn't really want to buy, maybe because Baltimore has really bad tenant laws, that it's like not favorable to the owner. It was like, all right, well, maybe we should find something else to buy if we're going to buy outside of Baltimore. And we stumbled on self-storage through another group. Actually, I know John's been on here. So John and I, we both were a part of a group and just started buying storage. I mean, so not to breeze over this part of the story, I think the important part was, I think I said it earlier, was like we put commercial real estate up on a pedestal. And we should have never done that. My number one mistake, I would say, is we didn't get into commercial real estate earlier. And it's all commercial real estate, right? Because we're renting it. But the bigger assets, we should have done it quicker. And again, that might have been my maturity level. It might have been fear. It was like I put it up on a pedestal. I didn't understand how it all worked. And it took me several years to figure it out. And once I did, I was like, oh my God, it's so much easier to get money for a $5 million or $10 million asset than it is for a $150,000 single family rental property. It was nuts, dude. So really that transition was me putting it up on a pedestal and not willing to take what worked from 0 to whatever, 5 million. And then what would take 5 to 10 million. We weren't willing to blow up what worked for us and get to that next level. And we were actually being minimalistic in a way. And I was like, I told my business partner, I said, we got to continue to grow. And this is the opportunity. Look, instead of grinding for $20,000 or $50,000 a house, we're going to grind for $500,000 or $1 million. And we only got to do one project. We don't have to do hundreds of projects. Dude, we would, at any given time, we'd have anywhere from 15 to 20 houses on the books for us at any given time. Whereas we could just have 1 or 2 big projects on hand, stabilize them, and then go to the next one. And I think that was the big aha moment that happened in the commercial real estate side of things.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, I was intimidated by commercial as well. I remember our first deal, 39 units, Travis and I, mobile home park. I was scared to death, man. I was so scared. I was admittedly nervous, and I thought, I don't know, it just felt like uncharted territory. It felt like I was over my skis. Since then, though, I've learned, like you said, the financing is easier. I've never talked to any one of those tenants because there's enough revenue to pay for management. It's amazing the efficiencies you get with going big. And we have people in our elite mastermind, 2 girls, sisters, who just bought their first mobile home park. And they've basically gone from owning no rentals to like buying this huge park. And I'm like, yes, hell yeah, this is amazing because they broke the seal. And I think they'll see that the path's realistic for anybody. And so I'm curious, you bought that apartment complex. How did that deal go? And then after that, obviously you had this big mindset shift. Were you like, all right, no more single families? Did you cut it off, or were you doing both? What happened after that?
Yeah. And on that apartment complex, explain the capital stack too. How did you take that thing down? Because people are listening like, wait, I don't understand how I could go from like single family houses to this complex.
Yeah, I think first off, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's about just having tools in the tool chest, right? And we're still opportunistic. We won't pass up on a single family if it makes sense to take our attention away from what we're doing. We'll still wholesale houses here and there because they just land. Like I just did one probably about 6 months ago. A guy I used to work with, hey, uncle died. This is what I want for it. I said, great, turn around, made one phone call. We made 50 grand by wholesaling it, right? Like it's just opportunity, right? And if you're in the game and everybody knows what you do, they're going to reach out to you like we've been reiterating here. Now for that apartment building, it wasn't like a magic. So we had a 7-unit building. We had a small commercial warehouse that we had owner financed. So we were dabbling, but this was the first time we had to do a phase 1. This was the first time we had to do surveys. We had to do all this stuff that was like, oh my God, like what am I doing? I don't know. But the way it came about was I had wrote a book on Section 8 rentals. It's called Subsidized. I think it's still up on Amazon. I'm not trying to sell it. It might be up there. Literally, I don't even pay attention to it. And anyway, so we wrote this book and I was trying to market. I was trying to do the whole coaching thing. And I was like, I don't know, it doesn't really serve me. Like I'm out. And this guy reaches out, this wholesaler, and he's like, hey man, really weird opportunity. I have a 76-unit apartment building. I'm wholesaling it. The owner asked me to reach out to you. She knows a couple of people she wants to sell it to. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested. Like, why don't you keep it yourself, Shane? And he's like, it's not really my thing. And I give him massive respect to be like, it's not my thing, right? And I was like, okay, I get it. And he's like, I just want to wholesale it. I want to make this much money on it. I said, all right, great. And then he goes, oh, by the way, she wants to owner finance 90% of it. I said, whoa, timeout, excuse me? He's like, yeah. And just to give everyone context, it's a $5 million deal. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, no, we'll talk about it in person. So I walk over to my business partner's office. I was like, all right, Dan. I said, I just got a phone call for a 76-unit apartment building. He's like, oh, how are we going to pay for that? And I said, well, I don't know, but she wants to owner finance 90% of it. Oh, bullshit. I said, well, listen, man, I'm taking the meeting. You're more than welcome to come with me. And if not, I'm going to figure out how to do this deal. We're figuring this out because this is it. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll be there. So whatever. So we go and meet this lady. And I give her credit. She knew everything about us. Sit down, we have a conversation. She's an older lady. Her mom had owned the building. And she's like, look, mom's about to pass. I want to owner finance it for tax reasons, but you have to put 10% down. And there's some good learning lessons here. Now, remember, she was interviewing other people in the Baltimore real estate market. And I said, all right. So we're going back and forth and we go and tour the property. I thought we made a great connection. She was a corrections officer. We're still firemen at the time. Her dad owned a beer store next to the one firehouse. It was this whole thing. We were all connected. I was like, yeah, a little bit of alcohol makes everyone happy, right? So I'm feeling like we got this deal. I feel like we're on lock. I'm riding a high. I'm already starting to call my boys. And then I come to find out we don't win. I was like, wait, what? I was like, she went with so-and-so. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I don't really understand it, but whatever. But what did I do? I put it in the back of my mind. I was like, oh shit, she's going to come into some money. We stumbled on another deal. So I picked up the phone and I said, hey, Miss So-and-so, I know you're coming into some money because White House Manor should be selling soon. Would you be interested in investing in one of our other deals? I thought we had a really good rapport. And she goes, you know what's weird? Still haven't put the other property in contract because these guys are dilly-dallying. And I think I messed up. I want to sell it to you. Let me call the lawyer right now. I said, well, but that's not why I'm calling. She goes, there's a reason you called today. I'm hanging up the phone, calling the lawyer, and we're going to meet tomorrow. I said, okay. So she calls me back. She said, meet me tomorrow at 1. So we go over at 1 o'clock, hash out all the terms in her lawyer's office. Me and Dan are walking around the hallway like, yeah, get outside. We're like, yeah, thank God. And it turned out to be one of the best relationships ever. She owner finances 90% of it. We refinance her 16 months later because mom passed. She was worried about Joe Biden's inheritance tax laws that never came about. We were able to refinance at a super low debt rate. And pretty much from that day forward, she goes, hey, I got back half the $5 million. My sister got the other half. I don't care what she does. I now have $2.5 million to invest. Where are you putting it? So not only did she sell us a $5 million apartment building that's now worth $10 million, she also wound up becoming a capital investor. But to go back to Travis's and Mitch's first part of this question is the capital stack. She put up 90%. We had to raise $500,000 or we had to raise $1 million. Plus we put in about a few $100,000 ourselves. And so she had $4.5 million. We brought in about $1.2 million, $1.3 million. And then we refinanced it for $6.8 million 16 months later. So we netted down all the money back and everything else. We walked away
your
with.
Investors are still in it, so you return capital. And is this a Section 8 complex? I asked, Gabe and I sort of inadvertently got involved with some Section 8 stuff, affordable housing stuff in Oklahoma City. So it sounds like it's not.
No, actually, that was actually a huge fear of ours because all we had ever done was subsidized houses. And I was like, wait, so now we got to go get market rate tenants. Like, this makes me really nervous. It's during COVID. It's during all this crap. We had a hard time raising money. We had a hard time evicting people. We had a hard time doing a lot of different things. And it winds up being one of the coolest deals, allows us to quit our jobs. We refinanced in September. I left in September. Dan leaves in October of that year. We left with about 15 years each on the fire department. And we said, you know what? We walked away with 7 figures. If we can't figure out how to make money over the next 5 years, we're idiots. And let's go and grow this thing. And so, yeah. So, I mean, it's one of the best deals we've ever done, but that commercial deal.
One deal can be life-changing. We say that all the time. People that get frustrated, it can take one deal that changes your life. And it sounds like this might have been a big one for you.
Yeah. I mean, any baseball guys in here, right? You got to get, first off, you got to get into the batter's box. Then you got to swing it. Then you just got to hit singles. And that's what we did. And look, we hit a couple doubles and triples along the way, right? We made 6 figures on a couple different properties, wholesaling or flipping them. But then this is the home run, dude. This is the grand slam in the bottom of the 9th in the World Series. This is it. This was the one that broke open the floodgates to say, okay, wow, we raised capital. We did this. We met lenders. We met life insurance companies that'll now lend us money, that we can now do these different types of deals. And lucky for us, we stumbled on storage and there was a blue ocean of buying storage facilities, and boom, there we went and we moved on. So for us, it was a really cool experience. And again, it kind of goes back to coming back into that saying yes mentality for a period of time. If I didn't say yes then, who knows? Maybe our careers would be different. I'd be sitting here talking to you about Section 8 rentals and how I made 100 of them and I haven't done anything since then, right? But if you're not growing, you're not going, you know what I mean? And I just feel too many people, look, I'm all for lifestyle. Do not get me wrong. I love the ability to have time freedom and everything else, but I feel like a lot of people make it either or. And really what you need to do is make the business survive on its own and make your life survive on its own. And they need to live synonymously, harmoniously, whatever word you want to use. Dude, right there, right? I love going offshore fishing. I love flying. I love wake surfing. I love hanging out with the boys. I love hanging out with my girls, right? Those are important to me. Those are the things that I want to do, but my business still operates, right? I was out all morning. I came in this afternoon to do this and a few other things, and back out on the road I'm going. But our business still survives and operates because we have an office manager. I act as the acquisitions manager, but we're not in acquisitions mode. So I have some time freedom right now. I mean, I think that's what's important. People are like, well, if I just do this, most people would say, oh, I made $1 million. Cool. Let me take a break, enjoy life, and then I'll come back and make money later. It's like, no, you made money, enjoy life, and make money at the same time.
Well, it's reaching that balance, I think. And when I think of time freedom, like it's choosing when to work, with who to work, with what to work on. But also this game is fun. I mean, there's a lot of fun inside of it. And Travis is my partner and we've had a lot of fun together, like just whether it's talking shit or going on a trip and looking at a property or whatever. But then we're also able to unplug, travel with our family. Like I think it is reaching that balance. I've gotten to the point where I take a week or two off and I'm like, oh man, I want to get back in the game. So I think it's harmoniously, like you said. That's a really cool word for that.
Yeah. And I think people, okay, so like I took a whole month off from work and I went down to the beach and I was like, all right, no fire department for a month. Let's see how this goes. And that was kind of like the beginning of the end there because I was like, wow, I go back to work. Guys are still talking about the same shit that we were debating a month ago. I was like, what are we doing? Which don't get me wrong. I love being the shit stirrer. I was like, yeah. And then I walk away, but I'm like, wow, man, nothing's changed here. It's the same conversations. And I'm like, man, we're not really growing. But in the same sense, I went down there and I was like, I'm going to shut it all off for a month. I found out really quick, I'm not that type of person. If you just give me 4 hours, just let me 4 hours. Let me just hammer out the phone, hammer out some emails, make me feel like I've completed something. I'll do anything you want the rest of the day. Right. And that's really important to me. And I know that's what makes me tick because you know what? You need to be in the game. If you don't think you're investing in real estate till the day you die, like then this isn't for you, man. Like this is the game. Like Warren Buffett's still investing every single day. What does that guy have on us? Time. But he's got more money than all of us, right? At some point, we'll have enough time to say, man, we made a lot of good investments. We made a lot of money. We're going to continue to do this all the way to the grave. I know that if you love this business, that's what you'll be doing because once you figure it out, it's super easy. It's a rinse and repeat model and let it rip.
Hey, Ian, you mentioned you're not in acquisition mode right now. Why?
We're just cleaning up parts of the portfolio. So what we like to do every year is we do the 80-20 rule. We really do it every month and just say, okay, what 20% of the properties are performing great? The other 80% probably need to go. And then we look at those 80% and say, what are the bottom 20%? Trim them out. And then later on this year, we'll then go ahead and buy towards the end of the year. So really just trimming fat, cleaning up the portfolio. I don't get into the, oh, well, if SOFR moves by this and the debt rates move by that, then I'll be a buy. Now it's like, look, you should be able to buy a deal at any given time. You're going to do the best deal that's presented to you at the time that it's presented to you. So if a deal lands on my lap today, we're okay. Now I'm in acquisition mode, right? But I'm not actively swatting all my brokers. I'm not actively marketing right now just because we're just kind of cleaning up some stuff.
Slow down and speed up.
Yep, 100%.
And Ian, is your focus right now just self-storage? I know if an opportunity presents itself, you said you'll wholesale this deal or maybe buy something different, but why self-storage? And is that the majority of your focus at this time?
Yeah, always looking at storage and industrial small bay flex is really what we like. So what we found out in storage is there's a lot of in and out, which we don't mind. But in the same sense, we like that long-term tenant, but we like the metal buildings and the crossover between that small bay flex, 2,500 to 5,000 square feet rentals on longer term leases, but in metal buildings. We'll still do storage. We do enjoy it. We're actively operating a portfolio today. We will do another deal there, but really we're kind of at that point now where it's like, all right, we've acquired a lot of stuff. Like our most recent acquisition was November of last year. We bought 55,000 square feet of office that we're converting to flex space. And that fits in that storage box, just not that direct, like self-storage month-to-month lease and all that other stuff. So we're actively operating that, but I like the fact that there's no toilets in a roundabout way, right? You're not getting that 12 o'clock call where someone's like, oh, the neighbor above me, toilet's overflowing. You got to send out an emergency. You're not dealing with the lockouts. There's a lot more responsibility to the tenant. You're dealing with business owners. I can deal with business owners. Dealing with the day-to-day tenant stresses me out. Dealing with business owners, people who are trying to grow a business, I get the struggles. I'm more willing to work with them when they're navigating their business inside and trying to rent a space. So that's why we like the self-storage business and like the industrial business in general. Metal buildings, I mean, you're literally renting a metal box. Dude, you're renting a garage door. It's that simple.
I love that. That's why we like mobile home parks. You're renting dirt. Sticks and bricks have been a real pain in the ass, especially with the cost run-ups and insurance and all the bullshit that comes with, like you said, roofs and gutters and drain and all the crap. I had a question for you, and I wanted to make sure I touched on this before we get out of here. Well, two questions. First of all, do you still hold these 100 single family homes, or did you trade those out for bigger stuff?
No, we've been selling some pieces off here and there. We're really bad sellers. We're great collectors. But the problem is like you collect them and then you're like, well, shit, they operate good. Like, why are we going to sell them? But then we're getting to that point where the cash flow doesn't outpace the equity in the property, right? So for a couple $100 a month, let's just say 500, right? $6,000 a year, if everything goes right, to make $60,000 on a single sale, you're talking about 10 years of cash flow. So recently we've been selling off some single families. We sold off an apartment building that we did that was 44 units. We netted like 11 and a half years of cash flow. It's a no-brainer, right? Because we have enough depreciation on the books from all of our other properties. It can come in, we can reinvest it and not have to deal with that tax bill. So that's been nice. And really, again, that was a performing property. And we said, you know what? The equity outpaced it. Not that it was a bottom 20% performer. The equity outpaced the cash flow.
Yeah, Ian, this is the conversation that I've had a lot in the last, I'd say 2 years. I mean, I've shared before on the podcast, like I didn't look at my return on equity for a long time, which I actually think served me really well because my focus, and I've always said for 2 decades, like I'm a cash flow investor. I buy for cash flow. But then at some point that equity outpaces that cash flow. And I had a friend say exactly what you just said. Hey, if you could get 10 years of cash flow in a day, meaning if I sold today, could I get more than 10 years of cash flow? You should consider selling. And I start looking at my portfolio. And I know I've shared this on, I swear, like the last 10 podcast episodes, but I start looking at my portfolio and I'm like, shit, 10 years of cash flow there, 15 years here, 20 years here. And I'm looking at it going, gosh, my return on equity is so low. What can I go do with that capital? Where could I go reinvest that to earn a better return, right? And so I don't think it's a hard and fast, hey, 10 years of cash flow, but it is something, it's definitely something to look at, like the velocity of capital. You have this equity. Do you let it just sit there and cash flow that few $100 a month? Every month forever, or do you take that equity and actually move that into something with a larger net return?
Well, you talk about the other crack too, is the larger properties. You can roll all that equity into a larger commercial asset. Crack to Mitch and I is when we figured out forced appreciation, 5 units or more on residential or commercial. For every annual dollar of profit that you create, you increase the value 10 to 20 times. So I'm assuming you're looking at the equity in these houses going, I can roll that into an under-optimized self-storage facility or flex space or commercial asset, and I can optimize it and again accelerate that equity creation faster than you could just
I've never heard Travis reference crack so much on a podcast episode. So we Travis, yeah, we might have to talk later, bud.
One day in Baltimore, dude. That's it. That's all it takes. It ruins everybody. But no,
Travis, if you need help, we're here, buddy.
Yeah, it was hard early on though, right? Because you're cash flowing $300 a month, and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to make 20, 30 grand. It doesn't move the needle in a way because we were doing all these projects that required so much CapEx. It's like, I'd rather just keep the $300 a month coming in. But to your point, Gabe, it's like you needed $100, $300 coming in to be like, holy shit, I got enough money coming in. I can do this. I can do that. Great. Now you can start to move the puzzle pieces, and you need to get to that critical mass. It's easier in commercial real estate to do it quicker. As Travis and Mitch said, about every dollar in is worth $20 or $15, depending how you look at it. But in the same sense, it's hard on some of those single family, especially what we were dealing in, right? $150,000 ARV houses, assuming you can find the right buyer. We weren't buying the best asset class in the world. And to make the $300 to $500 a month, we were willing to deal with the low level pain points in exchange for higher cash flow. Now we're at a point, and I think this is what me and the guy who I co-host the podcast with, we talk about all the time. You should always be improving your portfolio to better and better and better. And as that return on equity decreases, you can take the $100,000 pop, the $30,000 pop, whatever it is, and put it into a better asset class. And it should just be a better property type because now you can go buy the 6 cap, right? Because you have cash that you want to park or whatever it is. Now you can have more pride of ownership, the more stability you create, the better and easier it gets long-term, the more appreciation you get, blah, 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 blah. So I think we're on like course 601 by now because I know we covered a lot, but I love it.
Your story's inspiring. Absolutely.
Amen. I had one last question. Well, we have a couple questions. You've mentioned partnerships. It's a real touchy point for me. Mitch talks about we have a good partnership and such, but I disagree with that. It's a challenge. And I'm joking. Like Mitch and I are lucky. He's definitely one of my best friends. and we ebb and flow. We don't have clearly defined, like people that we mastermind with, like everybody needs clearly defined roles and responsibilities. And we're not. We're like, Mitch is out under the bridge in his truck like he is now. I turn around and I plug in on due diligence on a property. Or if I'm out traveling with my family, Mitch plugs in. But it works really well. We see eye to eye. We share similar cultural values like time freedom and family and these types of things. But I also know it's really rare. I've had business partnerships in the past, in a previous life, and it was really bad. And I've heard probably more horror stories around partnerships than I've heard success stories. I'm just curious, and for people that are listening, but if you can find the right partner, it's fantastic. You're going through the shit together. You're going through the risks together. You're learning together. It's like the ups and downs together, right? You're sort of bouncing ideas off each other. You're not like the only guy trying to make these decisions. So we have a lot of people that are really interested in partnerships, but I'm always like leery to advise people on that because a lot of partnerships go south. What's your advice to our listeners on how, quick backstory on how you found this guy, Dan, I think you mentioned, and then some advice to listeners that are considering potential partnerships?
Well, don't do what Mitch and Travis are doing and touch each other, apparently. No, I'm just kidding. But either way, no, seriously.
Did Mitch say that? Because I didn't say that.
I
Mitch
thought he
probably
said
said
that.
that.
Gabe, you heard it.
I
right?
heard
He
it.
said
I heard it. I've actually I've witnessed it when they didn't know I was around.
You're like Mitch and Travis and don't touch each other. Good thing my wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
No, but
The live events are weird.
I'll be there. Let's go. Dan and I, we grew up together. Actually, I grew up with his wife. He grew up with my wife. We knew each other really early on. Blah, 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 blah. We went through firefighting together, and it was just natural. And it turns out that I highly suggest if you're trying to find a random partner off the street, you both take a DISC personality test and pray to God that you guys are opposites. I'm a D, I'm an I. I'm a decision maker, and I'm very much visionary talker. I like doing things, interacting. And Dan is very much a supportive role and a decision maker, and probably a little bit of C in there, right? So we're almost complete opposites. He concentrates on things that I hate and vice versa. So it works out really well together naturally. With that being said, I highly suggest anybody that's trying to find someone off the streets, do the DISC thing. And if you are both the same personality type, because I did have a partnership where we both were, we had to hire for our voids, right? But with that being said, I mean, pretty much we haven't really no fights. We just kind of both coexist and do our things. And kind of like you said, one hand knows what the other hand's doing. For us, we both have a similar mentality from the fire department and kind of know how each other are. So we know what makes each other tick. I'm an early morning person. Dan's like, I get to the office at 11, but he'll stay here till 8 or 9, right? So we know where we cross paths, how things work together, what he cares about versus what I care about.
Well, Ian, it's almost time for us to let you out of here, but we do have one final question we ask all our guests, and it's a hypothetical, hopefully a hypothetical. If you woke up tomorrow, you lost it all. You don't have your real estate, you don't have any money in the bank, you don't have any net worth, and you also don't have your network. So you wake up, maybe you and your business partner, you're sitting on the curb together with nothing except for the knowledge that you've possessed over these last couple decades. What's your first move?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably going out and knocking on doors, and I'm drumming up some sort of business, whether it's, I know I won't have my network, but you know, if you can drum up some sort of business and go and wholesale some properties, if you got to go door knock, start at the bottom and work your way back up. Hopefully I have some dollars available to me in this situation that I'd be able to drop some mail, wholesale, build that war chest of capital again, and then go right back into it. I wouldn't change the career path that we took. I would not change nothing with the exception of if I had that war chest sooner, I would then invest in commercial real estate sooner. I would have an active income source. I would create an active income source that allows me to put income, that money into a passive investments that will outgrow my active income to allow me to be free again. So you might got to suck it up for a year or two, but I think all of us on this call have enough knowledge to go make $1 million tomorrow if it was required to do it. It'll suck. You'll have to give up some freedoms, but in exchange for that $1 million, you should be able to invest that money into real estate and never have to think about it again.
Love it, Ian. Awesome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
This podcast has been fantastic. The last thing I was going to say is think about it. What's the worst that could have happened? You're a firefighter. You've gotten a lot of people, they doomsday shit all day long, and then you realize you just go back to what you're doing. For those of you that are listening, advice is think about where you're going to end up. If you don't take the risks and you don't go out and meet the people and put yourself out there, you're going to end up where you're at now. So that's usually not a bad thing.
In case you're wondering, everyone, just to close it out with this, is my goal every day is to remain unemployed. We got drug tested all the time. And everyone's like, dude, you quit. Did you smoke weed? I said, no, I threw my razor out. There's a picture of me right back there, cleanly shaven, right about there. And I said, no, I threw my razor out. I don't care about smoking weed. Threw my razor out. I'm never shaving again. It's done. It was the worst part of my job. I hate it. You guys don't understand. I hated it. So that's done with my life. And my goal is to remain unemployed for the rest of my life. But yes, it could have been cool if I would have just remained a fireman. But I'm glad that we have this opportunity. We're moving, we're growing, and thanks for having me on. This was fun.
How can people find you, Ian? I know it sounds like you have a podcast.
Yeah, no, you can check us out, Equity Warehouse. We're all over the internet, equitywarehouse.com. You can learn about how we co-invest and co-lend with our friends and family. If you want to check out our podcast, it is the Real Estate Reserve podcast. We do 2 episodes every week. Go check it out. And it's just knowledge. It's like this. It's talking to guys who are just real people doing real things. This is what it comes down to. I mean, you guys are awesome. You can tell that you guys are actually real estate investors. You're not marketers, and that this is a real conversation because we can see how we all connected. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's what we try to make our podcast as well.
Awesome. Thanks, brother, for being on. Appreciate you.